Can you see me from this? Is this a good angle? Hello. I don't have a tripod for a phone. I have a bunch of other tripods for cameras. So we're gonna have to work with this today. I'm sorry until I get one. Hope you can wait. So, I figured, because I'm a big book nerd, I can talk about books today. And my top books that I've read lately. So the first book I want to talk about is Clothesline. And it is a contemporary collection of poetry and art. And each page basically has a picture, and then they pair a poem with it, or someone was commissioned to write a poem to the picture. And it's really unique because it talks everything about hats and their role in society, to a woman in a pink dress and how women feel uncomfortable sometimes when going out. I think it's really cool. There's famous images in here. There's one of Twiggy doing little like stage set things. The picture is by Cecil Beaton, and the poem by it is Body is to Spirit, and it's just so good. I really highly recommend finding a book like this that is kind of outside the typical lines of an art book and a poetry book, especially if you're someone that's multi-hyphenate and is interested in all these different areas of life, like myself. So this book, what drew me to it was obviously clothes. I'm a fashion major and an art major, so this is right up my alley. And then poetry I like to write in my free time, and maybe someday I'll show it to you guys. But when I want to find like a book that's completely out of there, not something everyone else has read, or at least not read for a while, I go to secondhand bookstore. So there's one in Kailua, on Oahu, Kailua, that's called Bookends, and it's like ceiling to floor, stacked with books. And I found this one little tucked away amongst the poetry, like individual shelf that's closest to the window in the poetry section. And I really don't regret getting this. This is probably up there in my top 10 ways of thinking, because it has literally a visual metaphor combined with a literary metaphor that creates this full image in your head, and I think it's gorgeous. So if you can find it online, pick it up. If you can't find it online, you can find books very similar to it, I'm sure, at your secondhand store. Because this book was made... it's in the back. There it is. It was made in 2001. So it's a 2001 book. It's not super old. And then, yeah, I think if you look for it, you can find these kind of similar style books. I can show you a few more images. This one talks about designing for a woman and like society's role, combined with a really famous picture of a Chanel evening dress. I love it. The shoes one talks about, basically the role someone takes when they walk around the earth and things like that. I promise I don't just like the black and white ones, even though my whole like aesthetic today is black and white, but that's this one. The second book I have is The Picture of Dorian Gray. When I say this book has been recommended to me, it has been recommended to me. I know it's a classic. I read a lot of classics in high school, but once I finished Hemingway, everyone was like, because I told everyone, and I'm sorry if you're a Hemingway person, I don't like Hemingway. Maybe I just read the ones that made me upset. But I don't need to know about a man and his journey to fish, essentially. But Picture Dorian Gray was strongly recommended to me because of the concept of beauty and the concept of youth and the concept of good and bad sins and how we hold ourselves and how we visually see ourselves, and that like whole thing of the good die young and the bad die older is kind of played as a dichotomy in this book. I can kind of read you the back of it. Oscar Wilde brings his enormous gifts for an astute social observation and sparking prose of Dorian Gray. His dreamlike story of a young man who sells his soul for eternal youth and beauty. This dandy who remains forever unchanged, petulant, hedonistic, vain, and immoral, while a painting of him ages and grows increasingly hideous with the years, has been horrifying, enchanting, and obsessing, even corrupting readers for more than 100 years. Oscar Wilde is known for being a corrupt writer and a kind of on-the-edge writer that people don't talk about a lot because of all the horrible things that happened to him. But I think Picture Dorian Gray is really worth it because of the last sentence where it says, while the painting of him ages and grows tedious basically throughout his years, and he stays young. And what does the weight of our mistakes cause us in the future? How do we view our future as young people? I think it's really worth it. It's a little thick, but it's not that thick. I'm reading one. It's way worse right now. But yes, picture Dorian Gray. Which movie next? Oh, I read Damned by Chuck Palahniuk. Another book that's strangely been recommended for me is, I love concise writing that's still very poetic and full of interesting wording and paints a really good visual in your head. He is a very straight to the point writer. He has some vulgarity to it, but it's welcome to vulgarity. This one basically follows a 13-year-old girl that died in a car accident. Her mom was a movie star person who didn't pay a lot of attention to her, and she goes to hell. And from hell, you see her try to escape it and try to talk to the devil, essentially, of getting out of hell. And you don't really get to much of a conversation about the devil, but you do get a lot of background and thought processes on the concept of hope, and when hope is lost, and is hope a good thing, is hope a bad thing? Yeah, not a car honking while I'm trying to do a video. I don't think you can hear it. But it's been compared to, like, it says on the back of the book, it's like Breakfast Club of the damned, essentially. It's like all these misfits get together, travel across hell, try to talk to the devil, and try to get themselves free and escape. Really cool. Very vulgar, so if you're not into that, I wouldn't recommend it. But his style of writing, I really enjoyed, because I was able to, like, without knowing, I read this book in 2 days. Because I went to the next chapter, just because of how it's formatted, and his writing style just keeps wanting me to go on. Next book is Siddhartha by Hermann Hesse. I have been told by a lot of people that this is a really great book. Also, I believe in high school I might have read an excerpt of this, because we had a whole time based on the concept of the individual and the journey of finding your own sense of living with yourself in the world, like freshman year. And I think I read an excerpt of this because part of it seemed very familiar to me. But yeah, basically the story of someone who's searching to meet with the Buddha, and he meets a bunch of other different religions along the way, and he discovers love, and he discovers sin, and he likes to figure it out, and at the very end he self-accepts himself. It's great. Last book I did was Mary Oliver's A Poetry Handbook. Like I said, with Clothesline, I write poetry on my free time just to get my mind out of the practices that I normally do in art and fashion. It's not great, it's not wonderful, but I wanted to learn poetry in a way that I can't learn outside of a classroom or e-class learning kind of thing. I wanted to read it from someone who is a poet, who's been in this world and enjoys both the old school and the new school train of thought. And a lot of people pointed me towards Mary Oliver because of her work. And this book, I annotated a lot. And when I say annotated a lot, I mean a lot. Because there's part of this book that just, oof, you don't even need, like, to be wanting to learn poetry. It's just understanding the language power of poetry that I found interesting in this. I think it's just a really great piece of work if you want to start learning how to appreciate poetry, and also how to start writing it a little bit better, and learning all the skills that are in poetry and seeing if you can apply them into your other life practices. But yeah, that wraps up my books that I've been reading right now. Guys, I hope you love this video. If you like it, remember to subscribe and share it with your friends and family. See you next time.